Hello, and welcome to Breast Cancer Conversations, a podcast brought to you by SurvivingBreastCancer.org. I am Laura Carfang, breast cancer survivor and founder of SurvivingBreastCancer.org, a nonprofit organization providing community, education, and resources to empower those diagnosed with breast cancer and their caregivers from day one and beyond. Our podcasts are made possible in part by corporate sponsor Store My Tumor.
Yeah, thank you. Is this your first podcast?
Yes.
Very exciting. Well, this is, again, and I think as I mentioned to you earlier, like a lot of our podcasting, like it's just a conversation.
In this episode, I'm pleased to be speaking with Janine Gilarde. Janine works with clients to improve their emotional and physical well-being with health and wellness coaching and Reiki. She believes that health and wellness is a lifetime. It is not just a moment in time. It is in the practice, whether it's practicing new lifestyle behaviors or daily Reiki practice, that creates lasting change. Her mission is to support her clients in transforming their lives through a combination of healthy diet. Food is the gateway to good health and a healthy lifestyle. Janine provides coaching, consultation, classes, workshops, and training to support health and wellness and well-being. Her specialties include weight loss and weight control, healthy lifestyle, stress reduction, healthy cooking, lifestyle medicine coaching, culinary coaching, and Reiki. Welcome to the conversation.
So I'm a registered nurse, and after I got my BSN, I was very much interested in holistic nursing, and I was very naive, and I thought there would be a job, holistic nurse wanted. That's not the case. It's much more of an approach to nursing care. So I was looking for ways to combine nursing with more of a lifestyle approach. So I had my own health issues that basically I was able to solve using primarily food. And I thought, gosh, if it worked for me, I get very excited.
Yes.
So I thought, geez, if this worked for me, and to me it seemed like this is a no-brainer. Exercise, nutrition, mindset, it all makes a difference. And of course, working as a nurse in a hospital, it was very disappointing to me to see so many people coming in and leaving on boatloads of medication, and also being told this is what you need to do. Like I literally saw he was a surgeon telling one of his patients, like, you cannot eat that food. Yeah, you need to stop. You need to change your diet. You're gonna die. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, that's not helpful. But that's unfortunately an approach that many do take. So I thought there's got to be a better way, and I found Well Coaches, and they are a certification school. So I got certified as a health and wellness coach, and I already had some coaching background because I had been helping people quit smoking. So with tobacco treatment specialist. Sure. So a lot of the same ideas. So I did that. And then kind of things progressed, and I found lifestyle medicine coaching. And then recently I got certified as a culinary medicine coach. So I'm kind of combining that with my nursing expertise, and I'm working at Dana-Farber as a lifestyle weight loss coach on the breast cancer weight loss study. So That's kind of what brought me to the breast cancer world.
Okay.
Yes, in a nutshell.
Is this behavioral changes, or how do you approach this practice?
Yeah, so that is a perfect question, because most people, I kind of equate it to the New Year's resolution, right? We're all familiar with that. I would assume, come January, I am going to, go on a diet, and I'm going to get to the gym. And statistically, that fizzles out by February. Mm-hmm. Usually by Valentine's Day, that fizzles out. So yes, a lot of this is, and I can tell you, most people will tell me, I know what I need to do, right? We read the newspaper, we have the internet, we have common sense, but it's how do I do it in a sustainable way? So yes, the key to that is between our ears.
Right.
So it's mindset.
Mm.
And it's a lot of it is behaviors and habit change. So yes, with the smoking cessation, a lot of it was, how do I shift my behaviors? Can I, how do I substitute, one behavior for a healthier behavior? A lot of motivational interviewing, understanding why somebody is engaging in a certain behavior. Is it serving them? Is it important for you to change? Are you confident you can change? So there's this groundwork that has to happen before I believe anybody's going to be successful in a sustainable way.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of work, and like coming together and coming to terms with the person that's reaching out and wanting to make a change in their life.
Yes. Again, and I think the issue becomes, and again, I see this often with a mindset, and this is more of a Western medicine approach to what we consider healthcare, is I'm going to give you a pill, and that's going to solve your problems. So you don't have to do anything, but just take your medicine.
Right.
But meanwhile, if the person's still engaging in the same behaviors, we're not getting to the root cause of the problem. And that's where kind of the juice is. Because unless you're identifying what got you to where you are, like a pill for the ills just doesn't cut it.
Right.
And most of us don't want to do the hard work. Right?
Exactly.
We want the quick fix. I cannot tell you how many people I talk to where I can give them a very reasonable, sustainable plan when it comes to healthy eating. Because most of the people I talk to, it's weight loss. Weight loss is one of the contributing factors. Again, research shows 5% weight loss can help with most disease processes, right?
Wow.
Including breast cancer recurrence. 5%, can be impactful. So I can give people the groundwork for how to do that in a sustainable, sane way. And invariably, somebody will come back to me and they'll be like, okay, what do you think about intermittent fasting? What do you think about keto? What do you think about paleo? And I have to kind of bite my tongue, because like, you can do it and I'll support you. Like, I'll support you, whatever you think is going to work for you. But the bottom line is, can you start making one change? Again, it brings me back to like the New Year's resolution, right? Like, is it feasible for you to like not eat candy ever again? If you think that's feasible, then I'll help you do it. But usually that's what leads to kind of these relapses and people feeling guilty and shameful because, oh, I couldn't do it. Well, no, you can't.
Right.
Right?
So like the realistic components of these lifestyle changes.
Yes.
So that's really interesting, and I know weight loss and weight gain actually is quite common in the breast cancer community. I know I have these conversations all the time on our like Facebook groups and in emails of, so you're going through chemotherapy and you're given all these steroids and you kind of bring on extra weight, kind of plump up in my opinion.
Yeah.
And like myself included, I gained a lot of weight during my treatment. I'm still working to shed those extra pounds, and William can attest to some of this. It's not going down. It just I wake up every morning and there's an extra pound, an extra 2 pounds, an extra 3 pounds, and I don't know if it's the hormonal therapies that I'm on right now or if it's being thrown, what I like to say as being thrown through menopause. I don't think I've actually hit menopause yet, but just medically induced, reducing the estrogen levels in my body. So it's a lot of change happening all at once, not to mention just the physical changes of going through breast cancer surgery and treatment. But now that I'm past the active treatment phase, what is the sustainability of just like your mental health after a medical trauma such as breast cancer, and then figuring out, okay, now that I'm back to work and the hair is back and I'm starting to get my life back together, why am I still out of breath so much? Why do I not have the endurance that I used to have?
Right.
And it's really hard to talk yourself out of this like downward spiral of, it's hard to do yoga because my joints hurt, or I can't run a marathon. I mean, not even a marathon. I can't, run a 5K, for
Yes.
example, without huffing and puffing. And so can you speak to when you, maybe even in your own practice or experience at Dana-Farber, working with the breast cancer community, and what tips would you share with them as they're kind of transitioning into this new chapter?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. And you know, the first thing that comes to mind is compassion. You know, it's not even so much prescribing like what somebody needs to do or should be doing, but you know, I think it's very important, especially when there's been a shift in what we, it's almost like that comparison, like, well, I should be able to do this because I could do it before. And that might not be the case. So I always like to interject, you know, try to be kind to yourself. Try to be compassionate and kind of meet yourself where you are. Because again, there's this constant battle, right? Like, I was able to do this and now I can't. And those feelings can get in the way. So,
Absolutely.
So you know, my first instinct is to always kind of reflect. Like, can you just accept things the way they are? Because that's where you need to start. And then in addition to that is trying to figure out what's going to work for the individual. So yes, I hear a lot of women, their joints ache. They get up in the morning and getting out of bed, you know, it's like there's not even a moment of relief, right?
Right.
So some of the things, and it's kind of counterintuitive because we always say, you know, exercise helps, but you have to start.
Yes.
Right? And it's very hard when it's like, oh, my body aches. So there are certain things that women can do that may help with that. I'm a big fan if somebody can actually get in the water and do kind of these non-weight bearing exercises in the water. Very easy on the joints. So
it's
that's
so great that you just said that. I was actually talking to William, like, I need to get back in the pool.
There you go.
Loved previously, like pre-diagnosis, I loved yoga. I practiced pretty religiously.
Yeah.
I was really great at it. I felt strong. I felt confident. I was able to like meditate and take in all of the benefits from yoga. And to this day, I feel like I'm one of those extremists, right? Where if going to a yoga class hurts my joints, and then it reminds me that I had breast cancer, and then I get, you know, this downward rabbit hole of I can't do this anymore. So I have just stopped doing yoga. And just hearing what you were saying about the candy example, I'm like, wait, why does it have to be yes or no, one or the other?
Yes.
Why can't I just go? And maybe it's not the, you know, very intense vinyasa yoga practice that I used to do in heated rooms, but maybe it's more of like a meditative, different type of practice that I can enjoy.
Absolutely.
So it's, again, trying to find this non-extreme, like, moderation of being active. What is a sustainable, like, life habit changing that I can engage in? And William, who's an avid swimmer, was like, how about you just get in the pool and do some of this passive resistance and, you know, exercise that's really going to help your heart with lymphedema, with all sorts of kind of the aftermath of breast cancer.
Yes, yes. So we call that all or nothing thinking.
Yes, okay, right? Raising my hand. Yes. That's totally me.
A lot of us, it's like it's got to be all, like I've got to do it, or like if I don't get to the gym for an hour, it's not worth it, so I'm just not going to go.
Oh my gosh, that so resonates.
Right?
Yes.
Yes. So we like to call that all or nothing thinking, and yes, it's like, how do we find that happy medium? And myself included, because I have, I don't know whether I might have told you this, I have a hip labral repair in my right hip. And my left hip, I have a cam lesion, and I was in a car accident, and I have degenerative disc disease in my neck. So I totally can relate to, I can't move my body in the same way that I used to.
Right.
So I have to practice this myself. And I love yoga. But I will not go to a yoga class because I have to modify everything. So I do a practice on my own in my house. I have my room set up. And I kind of do what I can. So, you know, it's kind of walk the talk.
Yes, exactly.
But it is, again, being empathetic and really learning to be compassionate and be kind. And some days are better than others.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, what can I still do, because I love the benefits, just like you, of yoga, like just in the confidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's one of the, like I go to the gym, and that's one of the few places that I feel like I'm in control here. Like I know what my body can do, and it's very empowering.
Exactly.
Yes. So how can you take that and kind of maybe shift it to, like you said, the pool, perhaps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And giving yourself permission too, that like something is better than nothing.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, whether it's like getting out of the house and walking just one block, go around the block for a little bit, get some fresh air. I started just doing that even at work, just to get out of my office and like clear the mind a little bit. I think that helps a lot with like the stress relief that can propel into, going to the candy dish or eating more chocolate than necessary, especially around 3 p.m.
That afternoon slump.
Yes, exactly. So how do you approach food as medicine?
So my approach, I wouldn't say there's one approach to it. The concept is, and there's studies to back this up.
Okay.
The DASH diet is a perfect example of this. Dr. Dean Ornish, DASH diet. Basically, it's a low-fat diet, minimal meat, if any meat, actually.
Okay.
So it's primarily a whole food, plant-based diet. And what this diet has shown, and it's very low fat, but the diet has shown it can help with blood pressure. It has reversed some coronary diseases, and he's actually done some research using this dietary approach with prostate cancer, with some pretty phenomenal results. And he's not the only one. I mean, there's this whole field of lifestyle medicine. So it is really looking at which foods can be helpful in preventing and or reversing most chronic disease processes.
Okay.
Yes. So
that's quite incredible, actually,
if
you think about it.
It's amazing. And there are even some studies that show that certain foods, and not that one food can prevent a disease, but certain foods have compounds in them that show to actually like fight cancer. So like berries, for one. So there's lots of good reasons to be eating pretty much like a whole foods, plant-based diet. So I don't know if you're familiar with Michael Pollan. He's written quite a few books.
I don't think so.
No,
not off the
Michael
top of my head.
Pollan.
I did just order, and I wanted to ask you about this. I did just yesterday order on Amazon. I was taking notes over here. The Lifestyle Medicine Handbook.
Oh, okay.
And I think it was written in conjunction with a bunch of different doctors, but in particular, Dr. Beth, is it Frades? Frades. Yes. And were you part of the institute that she started?
So the culinary chef coaching. So we work with the Institute of Lifestyle Medicine, which is part of Spalding Hospital.
Okay.
So Beth does present at that lifestyle conference, as does Eddie Phillips, and they're very involved. So yes, Beth is amazing. Yeah, I don't know if you follow her on Twitter.
I'm about to. I literally just got virtually introduced of her recently, and so I went online and bought her books and just started following her, and then in preparation for our conversation today too. Learning more about this whole genre of lifestyle medicine, which is not new. It's, I think, maybe more just now coming into light as a complement to traditional care.
Yeah, so absolutely. Lifestyle medicine is more about all of the things that impact our health. So whether that's food or exercise or stress reduction, mindfulness, all of those pieces, because it's just not one thing. But again, I would say the studies show that most doctors, they don't get any nutrition training in medical school. So you'd be hard-pressed to find a doctor who would feel comfortable or even know enough to make any suggestions about nutrition and foods.
It's absolutely shocking.
It's shocking.
Because we've had this conversation with many survivors,
Mm-hmm.
and we've asked what their oncologist had to say about diet, about alcohol consumption, particularly wine, response invariably was to moderate your diet
Mm-hmm.
and moderate your alcohol consumption, which is, that's not advice.
No, it's very vague.
It's terribly vague.
Yes.
And you're looking at the perspective of a breast cancer survivor who's already in a world of hurt mentally, and you're not really assisting. And I think that they need to do a better job with that.
They do need to do a better job, and I can tell you, I have spoken to many of the participants in the Be Well lifestyle study, and they're dumbfounded. They ask me, I don't understand, why didn't anybody tell me that nutrition plays a role? Why was I told, eat whatever you want?
Yes.
Right? Eat, doesn't matter. Well, it does.
Yes, it does.
It does. And so it is eye-opening for many, many women that food makes a difference. And it's not carte blanche. And it's interesting because on the car ride here, I was listening to NPR. And they were interviewing, I forget the person's name, but it was all about food and culture. And he was talking about in France. So for breast cancer, whether it's prevention or preventing recurrences, the common kind of the research is showing that it's low fat. Low fat is very helpful. However, if you're in France, the French, who are much leaner than we are, they're much healthier than we are, they do eat much more saturated fats than we do. Now, saturated fats are those fats that are most unhealthy. Those are the ones that you find in the red meat, processed foods, things like that. And there's a lot of links between saturated fat and heart disease and all sorts of chronic diseases. But in France, the whole idea of food is much different, because in France they're not sitting down and saying how much sugar is in this, how many carbohydrates are in this, what's in the food I'm eating. They're not thinking about how it affects the bloodstream per se, but they're thinking about the actual concept of eating food and enjoying the company.
Right.
And so one of the things that they find is portion sizes are much smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So the point is, even if you're eating these foods that may or may not be so quote unquote healthy, portion size, like that's just one little thing that could potentially make a difference. The whole idea of mindful eating can make a difference. So, instead of trying to focus so much on like what am I eating, there's also the how and the why. Like you said, 3 o'clock, I'm just like, give me the chocolate.
Yes.
Well, why is that, Laura?
Exactly. I recently made a shift to carrots and celery because instead of the potato chips, because I wanted that crunchy, motion of putting my hand in some sort of bag. So, my little Ziploc pouch of, whatever I can pick up. Yeah. But, just having that oral fixation of, crunching and biting something and this repetition of putting your hand in the chip bag. But now I'm like, okay, at least it's carrots now. And it's kind of going back to what we started off talking about, was that behavior or trigger, or why do we feel like we have to do X, Y, and Z because we've done it, for years repeatedly.
Absolutely. It's habitual. And it reminds me of the smoking. So that was one of the things. People, and I was a former smoker, and one of the things was this hand to mouth.
Yes.
So what could you put in the place of that? So we used to give them the coffee stirrers to just kind of chew on.
Yeah, because you're not going to eat it.
You're not going to eat it.
That oral fixation is satisfied by food, but it's also satisfied by things that you're not going to consume.
That's correct.
Right.
Putting a pacifier in your mouth.
Yeah, pretty much. Is there a healthier alternative to this? carrots are a great, healthier alternative.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
good for you.
Yeah, it's that consciousness, though, of realizing why I was doing it.
Well, yes, this is a big thing, and good for you for realizing that connection, because that's where a lot of the work happens. Because most people, when I ask them why did you eat that certain food, what was it about the chocolate cake, were you hungry? They're like, well, I wasn't really hungry. Well, then why did you eat it? And it gives people pause, like really to think about, why am I doing this? Where is it coming from? And often, I can tell you, a lot of this comes back to childhood.
Really?
Yes. If you think about, and I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, it was like, you need to finish the food on your plate because there are starving children in China.
Yes.
Especially with that whole Judeo-Christian belief of not wasting food.
Not wasting food. We pick the fork up, and we put the food in our mouth, and then we stab the next piece of food, and we're hovering. The fork is just hovering, waiting to like go into our mouth.
Yes.
That's very typical. So I tell people the simplest thing that you can do: put the fork down.
Okay.
Chew your food. Be mindful and pay attention to the food that is in your mouth before you actually put the fork back up to your mouth.
Okay.
Because it takes 20 minutes for that message to get from your stomach to your brain, to tell yourself to register like, I am full.
Okay, right.
Yes. So that is why, most people during the holidays, typically Thanksgiving, people are like, oh, I'm stuffed. And that's usually because, people are so caught up in just eating and piling the food on the plate and not being mindful of, oh my gosh, you know what? I'm actually full.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. So that's one key to mindful eating. But it's also like setting up the environment. So no distractions, which means the TV's not on. The radio's not on. You're actually sitting at the kitchen table. Right? I know a lot of people that will sit in front of the TV on the couch and eat their food. So the environment that you're eating in also makes a difference.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I believe that. I have tried getting slowly in the habit. It doesn't happen all the time, but literally like turning off the lights in my kitchen after dinner's over. So it's almost like the kitchen is now closed.
Yes.
Like, don't go back into the kitchen in terms of like, the snack before bedtime or anything like that. So it's like, okay, we had a great meal. It was healthy. We're definitely trying to cook a lot more at home, again, mainly because of the salt situation.
Yeah.
And, it's helping. It's actually interesting because I would joke with William, like, I want to go out on a date. I want to go out to a restaurant. And then we start going through our minds of, like, what are we hungry for? Where should we go? And then we come to the conclusion, well, we have food in the refrigerator. We might as well just cook.
Just easier.
Because by the time you go through everything, you're like, well, that's not really healthy. We've just done so well this week.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, too, I fall, I'm not sure if our listeners can relate to this, too, but, like, you get through Monday through Friday, you kind of hit the checklist. I made it to the gym 3 times this week. I, didn't have, as many, like, drinking, like, out with friends or anything. Like, I've achieved my goals, right? And then you get to the weekend, you're like, I deserve that chocolate cake. I deserve that big meal or, a libation of some sort. And I think that goes back to, like, the lifestyle habits and the long-term success, right?
Yes.
Someone told me, it's fine if you go on vacation and you indulge, but you can't have 52 vacations in a year. And I'm like, oh my God, look at me. I like fall into that every weekend. I'm like, okay, let's party. Like, let's enjoy ourselves. It's the weekend. We made it through the week. And I was like, oh my God, I'm totally self-sabotaging right now.
Yeah.
There's that realization that,
It is that realization, and you're not alone in that. I hear it a lot. It's like, I'm good, and I really don't like when people define good or bad, because again, that's that judgment coming in.
Sure.
But I've been good all week, so let me let loose. Let me kind of enjoy. This isn't punishment. Like, if you're feeling like during the week you're not enjoying yourself and you're depriving yourself, we need to kind of focus on that, because it should be like, this is my lifestyle, and there's no weekend that I'm allowing myself to kind of throw caution to the wind, because yes, you're right, it's like I've just sabotaged all those good intentions that I've had for myself.
Right.
So what do I need to do again to kind of make this important enough that I want to sustain this, whether it's a weekend, whether it's vacation. And yeah, we always use that kind of mindset too. Like, yeah, you want to let go a little bit, but where's that slippery slope, I guess?
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I wanted to mention too, and again, this is something that I bring up a lot, because there is, the reality is that some of the medications and some of the treatment, it causes weight gain. We can't sugarcoat it. This is reality. However, I always like to encourage people and think about, like, but you're still working on making changes. And maybe the scale's not moving in the way that you want it to, or maybe you're not able to do that 5K quite yet, but if you weren't making these changes, just imagine just how much more difficult it would be. So give yourself credit, and yes, maybe it's not where you want to be, but whatever you're doing something positive for yourself. So to kind of shift the perspective a little bit, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Yes.
Because it's all important.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're in it for the long run, right?
You are in it for the long run. Absolutely. Yes. So we're in Boston.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Boston has a lot of hospitals. And a lot of people are very invested in a Western medicine approach to what is considered health care. I consider it sick care. It's not about being healthy. It's about how do we put the Band-Aid on. So the needle is going to move very slow in this particular region of the world. But I think I know that now, like, there's a push for getting more nutrition into the curriculum of doctors in medical schools, getting more of the lifestyle medicine fellowships, so that this is, starting from education and bringing it out into the community. Cleveland Clinic, I think they do a lot in lifestyle medicine. So I think it's slow. I think a lot of it is mindset. And unfortunately, without getting into the politics of it, there's a lot of money to be made in pharmaceuticals.
Of course.
So, I do think that plays a role. And nobody's going to fund research on broccoli unless there's a way that I can make a pill out of broccoli where I can get some money. So that I do believe, and I might sound a little cynical, but I do think that is part of it.
Well, if you consider, just in breast cancer alone, 10% of breast cancer patients owe their diagnosis to genetic predisposition. 90% owe it to something else. And that something else is typically environmental.
Absolutely.
So if you consider the garbage that we put in our hair, the garbage that we're consuming, the garbage that we're breathing, the garbage that we're washing with, the garbage, et cetera, it would lead one to be less than optimistic. But your response, I think, is dead on with regards to education, and not necessarily to completely get away from Western medicine, but to recognize the significance and the importance of lifestyle and food consumption, alcohol consumption, not to say no to anything, but to treat your body as extremely well as you can, and to be ingesting and digesting as much proper food and nutrition that you possibly can. And I was going to ask you to speak to organic food for a second as well.
Yeah. There's a lot of thoughts on whether breast cancer survivors should be eating organic. That's a question that I get. I do believe that organic food, yes, is important, especially with the Environmental Working Group. Are you familiar with EWG? Yes. So again, their research. So there are a lot of foods. It was the Dirty Dozen. Now I think it's moved on to 15. So one of the issues is, and it's in the news, that Roundup is responsible for cancer diagnoses. Mm-hmm. So deny all you want, but I do believe that if people, obviously organic is more money, so I would say if people are thinking about going organic, use the environmental working groups like Clean 15, Dirty Dozen, and if you're going to eat strawberries, I would say eat organic. You know, there are certain foods that just suck up those pesticides, especially if there's no rind, like oranges. We don't really have to worry about it. Bananas. So I eat organic. I encourage people, within their budget, you know, whatever they can do.
It is very expensive.
It can be, yeah. Or grow your own food.
Right. Just don't use those pesticides and herbicides that are leading, that we have no clue as to how toxic
well,
they
this
really
is the
are.
issue. Yes, we don't. And unfortunately, when, you know, the farming, the way that it's set up, when crops are sprayed, it kind of travels in the wind.
Exactly.
And
gets into the soil, it gets into the water, it gets into the birds and the bees.
Right.
And Joni Mitchell said it. She said, "I'll take leave the spots on my apple, but leave me the birds and the bees."
Right.
And ultimately, if you consider all of the damage that we've done, and chemicals have served a fairly useful purpose as well, but they've also introduced an awful lot of carcinogens into our lifestyles and into our health and well-being.
Yeah. There's this app I recently downloaded. I don't know if it was recommended from the Environmental Working Group or where. It's called Think Dirty. And you can literally scan barcodes now, like if you're at the grocery store or buying like shampoo or different products, and it'll rate between like 0 and 10 the level of toxicity of the product. And it's interesting, and I think we've definitely
eye-opening.
Yes, completely. But we've definitely made some changes.
Yes, and it's all degrees. So, you know, not everybody's ready to like throw out their makeup, or maybe not everybody's ready to like go totally organic or totally plant-based. So again, it's like start where you are, take one little step, and you know, you just never know where that might lead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think despite how expensive organic is, I think by going plant-based and not spending money on the meats, you're able to save money in that direction too.
Yes.
So, you know, while we still spend a lot of money going grocery shopping, we're buying different products with the same price tag.
Right. And you know, another thing that I think is important, and it's unfortunate because most of the work that I do is prevention.
Okay.
Right? So it's how do I prevent somebody from getting high blood pressure or getting a chronic disease? That's not sexy though. Nobody is calling me saying, I'm worried I might die.
Right.
That's not, people are not concerned about that. So it's really figuring out, you know, what is it that's important to you? Because that's not the thing.
Sure. Yeah. It's I was reading an interesting statistic that as women we're aware of breast cancer, you know, 1 in 8 women in their lifetime may be diagnosed with breast cancer. People are talking about soft breast exams, you get your mammograms, etc. But the statistic I saw is that women are more likely to die of heart disease than they are of breast cancer. I'm not sure if, like, you've heard anything similar to that. I don't know where.
It's the leading killer.
The leading killer for women.
For women.
For women.
Yes. So to this point, like, we're all like, okay, especially even in our own organization, survivingbreastcancer.org, it's all about the focus is on breast cancer, rightly so. But then what about all these other things that can be, you know, impacting our health that we're not talking about because maybe it's not as sexy or...
Yeah. I have to lose weight because I have an event coming up, or I don't feel so good about myself, or, you know, my blood pressure is through the roof and my doctor says I have to lower it. So it's kind of... The goal is to help you kind of be in this place where you don't ever have that big thing come down on you where it's like it's the fear that's running the show.
Yes.
Because that's when we're not thinking straight and we're like kind of willing to do anything, and that's what I want to avoid, because I've seen that a lot in the hospital. Like, just tell me what I need to do and I'll do it. I don't with diabetes, for example, like, I don't want my leg amputated, so just like tell me what is it I need to do. And often at that point it may be too late. So I think that it really is about empowering people to just live a healthy lifestyle. Just to feel good, just to feel better.
Right.
And one of the things that I find is a lot of people, because they're so accustomed to eating the crap food or maybe being sedentary, and they say, oh, it's old age, I'm getting older, that's why my joints hurt, or I'm getting old, I'm menopausal and that's why I can't lose the weight. And once I start making shifts, then it's like, oh my God, I feel better. Like I didn't realize how crappy I felt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do we help share this message? I love that this is part of our podcast now too, because we can help share this out in various ways, whether it's through the blog, through the podcast, getting into like the school systems, I think is really important. We were brainstorming too. We actually have a call coming up this week with all of our volunteers of how we can not just gear up for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but what are things that we can do in our local communities to raise this type of awareness.
I think people get so overwhelmed. It's like, what? I can't eat anything. Everything's going to cause cancer. So what am I supposed to do? And that's when people get very frustrated and just say, screw it. I'm just eating the McDonald's and I don't care.
Yes, totally. I'm looking back at my notes, like the all or nothing mentality.
Right.
It's like, where on the spectrum then do we fall?
Yes.
So.
And that's where coaching comes in, because it's so individualized. You've got to figure out what is going to work for you right now in the here and now. Yeah. And maybe this is the best option now. Doesn't mean that, a month from now you're not going to change your mind and you want to do something different. But let's start where you feel confident and you feel it's important enough to make that change.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, that's so well said. It's important enough to make that change. I think that's empowering right there. Like, we're worth it. Our bodies are worth it. They have been, they're really miracles. Like, if you think about how the body is able to heal.
Total. And that's such a good point, because we have the capacity. Our bodies want to be in homeostasis. Our bodies strive to be healthy. Yeah. That's just like our God-given birthright. Right? So, no matter what we do, our bodies are always like, this is not where I want to be. So yes.
And they let us know, right?
Well, this is it. And so it's listening. Like, am I paying attention? Am I paying attention to the fact that I feel crappy after I eat that certain food? Or I don't feel so good when I don't exercise. Like, our body is, it's when kind of it reaches the breaking point is when that's the traditional, like, I had my wake-up call. Like, I had the massive heart attack. That was my wake-up call to, just pay more attention. And again, that's where I talked about, like, that's not where I want people to be.
Right.
I'd rather help them avoid that path. But yeah, I'm totally with you. This is about educating and empowering people, and it's not about shaming, but it's really, and I always tell people, I'm going to give you what I have, like what the research shows, maybe some anecdotal stories, and guess what? You get to do with it what you want. Because it's now you have the knowledge.
Right.
So I always tell people it is a choice, not a cheat. If you're going to have whatever the food is, you're making a conscious decision that, you know what, I'm going to eat this. It is my choice. No judgment, no shame. But, and that's that. So health coaching is not licensed.
Okay.
So I guess one of the caveats is anybody can call themselves a health and wellness coach. I have seen people that are selling certain supplements call themselves health and wellness coaches. That makes my blood boil, because often they're well, first of all, selling a supplement, but second of all, there's some empty promises that people make, and I get very angry about that. So again, if somebody's looking for a health and wellness coach, I would personally look to see what are their credentials.
Okay.
Because it's not like this. It's kind of like the Wild West. It's kind of like, personal training wasn't. You didn't have to be certified. You could go see somebody, and if you got hurt, oh well.
Right.
So that would be my first thing if somebody's looking for health and wellness coach. See where they got their certification, and do your due diligence, and really look into their credentials. And secondly, yes, so pricing. I can tell you in the Boston area, there's usually an hourly cost for health coaching. It's typically $100 an hour.
Okay.
However, most coaches offer packages.
Okay.
So, and the reason for that is because with behavior change, again, the research shows it takes about 30 days, right? So it's not the quick fix. It's not, it's not like the 7-day detox. It really is. And again, it's getting to what's between my ears, right? That takes some time.
From our perspective, too, as like a nonprofit trying to mitigate some of the financial barriers to provide access for people to have this knowledge and support as they're going through some of the life changes, too, how we can help, offset some of those costs.
Yes.
So that's important to hear. And I love that. So I agree with the 30 days as like a habit, like lifestyle changing habit is using the 30-day mark. And I feel like the first of every month, I'm like, okay, it's a new month. I have 30 days and I'm going to try and do something. And by like day 8, it's out the window. Very similar to the New Year's resolution.
Right. Yep.
But just so our listeners know too, we're, approaching the summer months here in Boston. And I literally told William on June 1st, like, I'm waking up. Okay, it's the first of the month. We're going to try this 30-day thing. But pretty much from Memorial Day to Labor Day, we're giving ourselves this 3 months of good weather. We can be outside to exercise. You want to eat healthy because you have like the humidity and the heat and everything, but you want the watermelons and the fruits and the vegetables. And so really taking it upon ourselves, William and I, to use these 3 months as making
your
that
jump
shift.
start.
Exactly.
Yep.
So we should have a debrief in August and see how everything went. But again, just, that's not to say that I'm not going to sit on the patio and have rosé once in a while because it's summertime in Boston. But at the same time, what is that moderation going to look like, and how can I be kind and gentle to ourselves, myself, and I love all the words. Like, again, I'm sitting here taking notes.
Yes, I see you scribbling.
Compassion and, acceptance and kind of understanding where we are, playing into like the mind, body, wellness component.
And this is very common, like kids in sports.
Yes.
That's a whole other topic. But, so, kids have sports from sun up to sundown. And she's like, I've got to drive my kid here, and then I got to pick up the other kid. And so I said, we're doing some brainstorming. And I said, well, would it be possible to ask somebody else to do this for you? Like, is there any other solution? For her, that was a non-negotiable, because she said, you know what, I was sick for so long and I wasn't able to do this. So right now, no, this is my priority. She made it very clear, which, you know what, okay.
Yeah.
So good for you, but it is, where are my boundaries? Right? Where's my hard stop? And can I say no to the visitors because I'm really tired and not feel guilty about it? So yes, sometimes we need somebody else to be that person when we're feeling like, oh, they're not going to understand, or I'm a terrible person, or whatever those stories that we make up in our heads.
Exactly.
Right? Where most people would understand. Like, no, she needs to rest and recover. And but
Yeah.
meanwhile, we're like just, onward and upward.
Yes. No, and I think it's important too to also realize, like you said, a lot of great takeaways, like what brings us joy, right? I think that's a very easy, like yes or no. Like, does this action bring me joy or not? Should I
Yes.
do this or not?
Right.
I love the idea of like setting these boundaries and understanding what are the non-negotiables, and they're personal. So like what is
Absolutely.
non-negotiable for you may be very different than what it is for me. But then figuring out as we are trying to change some of these lifestyle behaviors and everything, if you're adding something on your plate, what then is being taken off of your plate?
Yeah.
Because I think it's very easy to kind of get to this level of stress and feeling like we need to do it all, and then things spiral out of control, and that's where you can definitely be the recipient of some of these health issues that come up.
Yes.
So,
Gets a little
oh my
overwhelming.
gosh, I feel like I can keep asking you questions and picking your brain about all these like amazing topics. I'm like, okay, I know like our community, we talk about like inflammation, and we talk about like all of this. Like,
Yeah, well, it's speaking of inflammation, so 90% of diseases are related to stress. I mean, stress causes inflammation. There's also certain foods that cause inflammation as well. So again, dealing with stress in and of itself can help the body recover, and have less of that heat in the body, that inflammation.
Are there blood tests or tests that people should ask their primary care or their various doctors about in terms of testing for stress levels or inflammation or anything like that?
So the only test that I know of, there's a marker for arthritis, because that is an inflammatory disease, and I forget the name of it right now. It's a lab test.
Yeah.
On the whole, I'm really not sure if there are. I'm sure there are inflammatory markers when it comes to like heart disease and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah. But from what often people will know joint disease is another. There's a lot of disease processes that are fibromyalgia. There's a lot of inflammation. Yes.
Yeah. I know. I feel like
High blood pressure.
I know. I can't wait to talk to my doctors, and for our listeners out there, I will definitely give you guys an update on what is going on with me health-wise. I was even joking too. I have a mild stage of lymphedema also, because I had like my full lymph nodes removed, and so I'm getting special massage, lymphatic massages once a week, which is wonderful. I think everyone should get a lymphatic massage. But they're teaching me different like techniques and different ways to like wrap your arm before going to sleep and getting a compression sleeve. And I joke with our breast cancer community a lot that I wish I could just get one of these sleeves for my whole body just to like stay compressed, because it's hard. And I know I bring it up a lot with everyone I talk to, but just the changes of your body are so challenging to accept, and I really appreciate this conversation of being in tune with what your body's going through, acknowledging it, and knowing that this isn't forever. You can make changes. You are in control of these choices, and it might not happen overnight, but we didn't get diagnosed with cancer overnight either. Right?
Yes.
So
that kind of being rational about it, knowing like nothing happened overnight, so like I can't expect that it's just gonna miraculously disappear in a moment.
That'd be too easy.
Right? Yes. And also looking for like, what's the lesson in this? Like, what am I learning about myself as I go through this? And what is it that I want or wish was different, and why? And again, coming back to that acceptance of just realizing, okay, because what I find is that we create this tension when we can, and again, it's that mindfulness, can I accept what is right now, the present moment? And if I can't, that's creating a whole other cascade of events, whether it's stress, whether it's I'm beating myself up because things should be a certain way, and it is not easy.
Right.
It's not easy, but I'm really a big fan of asking, like, what did you learn? Like if somebody is like, oh, just back to the food thing. Like if somebody's like, well, I was at a cookout and I had this and I had that, and I said, okay, well, what could you do differently next time? Like instead of like beating yourself up about it and, oh, I should have done this and, oh, I feel like crap. And okay, well, let's pretend we have a time machine. Let's go back into time. What's one thing that you could have done differently? Not should have, but could have.
Right.
And whatever that person decides, like, okay, maybe I'll have, a hamburger and not the hot dog. All right, so next time you try that out. Just try it out and see if it works. And if it does, great, then you know it worked. And if it doesn't, we'll just come up with another solution. But it's, instead of like sitting in it and like, like kind of that energy that brings us down, like, oh, I can do this differently. It's possible. Might not be easy, but it is possible.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Completely.
Yeah.
So do you practice mindfulness? How does someone practice mindfulness? I know we talked a little bit about it in terms of like eating and different techniques you can do with your fork and chewing and just being present, not in front of the TV and having like in my case, my structured time for the meal. But I hear this term a lot about, practicing mindfulness. What does that mean to you?
Yes. So for me, it is really trying to be in the present moment, really experiencing the here and now instead of like living in the past or living in the future.
Right.
And a lot of people confuse kind of this idea of mindfulness or this idea of like paying attention as like, oh, I shouldn't have any thoughts. No, that's not the purpose. That's not the purpose of meditation. That's certainly not the purpose of being mindful. It's being aware.
It's the opposite.
It's the opposite. And I believe that research has shown that we have the same thoughts repeating in our heads over and over and over again. So whatever is going through our heads is kind of where we're headed, right? Thoughts create things. So we create our reality with our thoughts. So if I'm not aware of my thoughts, good, bad, or indifferent, I'm kind of just like free falling.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So it is, and I think, there's many, Thich Nhat Hanh, I mean, he does a lot of mindful walking, and this is kind of a Zen tradition, kind of walking meditation of a way to be mindful, just putting one foot in front of the other. The breath, I think that's the easiest thing because we all have access. We breathe, but how are we breathing? I tend to be more of a shallow breather. So it's like I have to remind myself to practice that diaphragmatic, that deep belly breathing, because again, that reduces stress. When we slow down our breath, when we slow down our heart rate, our body and our brains kind of coalesce. And we can instill that relaxation response that Herbert Benson kind of coined just with breathing alone.
Yeah.
Right? So, yes. But again, it's a practice.
Right.
It is a practice. Yes.
Exactly.
So just having an awareness. So again, back to the food, when asking somebody, the food just didn't magically get in your mouth.
Right.
Right? Like the chocolate cake didn't jump into your mouth.
If only it had.
Right? Nobody forced you to eat it. So, like, what was going on? If you're telling me, oh, I shouldn't have had it. Oh, it was a bad decision. Like, what was going on?
Right.
Where were you in your thoughts?
Right.
Right?
It's all interconnected.
It is, yes.
I love this idea of becoming
all
more
interconnected.
aware, self-aware, environmentally aware, and
Yeah.
making the choices that serve you.
Yes, it's very empowering. I tell people knowledge is power. You get to do what you want with it, but you have the knowledge. So again, back to the choices, right?
Yes. Oh.
You make the choices, and if you're not happy with the choices that you're making, then yes, maybe a coach or maybe a therapist or maybe a friend that can support you in trying to make the changes or discovering like what's the block.
Yes, I
What's
think
getting in the way? We
You
could
mentioned that you were like
probably
also
spend all day.
like a certified Reiki instructor.
Yeah.
Or-
So I
Not
am
to change topics
Yeah,
completely,
yeah,
but like
yeah.
you were just like amazing with all of this
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
like, background that you have.
Yes. Yeah. So Reiki practitioner, there is certification. Yes, there are many different Reiki certifications. I've been doing Reiki since I think the mid-90s. So I studied acupressure and shiatsu. And so part of that training was Reiki. And it was with John Harvey Gray, who is no longer with us, but he was one of the very first Reiki practitioners to be practicing in the West. So it was pretty phenomenal that I got to study with him. So I've been practicing Reiki for quite some time, and again with Reiki, there's no licensing or anything like that. But Reiki is, and it's being used in the hospitals.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it has, again, anecdotal because nobody's paying for funding.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Who's going to fund Reiki? But anecdotally, particularly women with cancer, breast cancer. I mean, Dana-Farber has it. Brigham and Women's. I think probably most of the major Boston hospitals have integrative medicine, and they have Reiki volunteers. So yes, very powerful. And Reiki is hands-on energy work.
Mm-hmm.
And it can even be hands-off, like the hands don't have to be touching the body. But it helps with that relaxation response that I was speaking of. It helps the body kind of reset and naturally be in that relaxation instead of the fight or flight, or in the rest and digest phase. And that rest and digest phase is what helps the body heal itself. So that is why I believe it's a really important. And Reiki is one of those things that people can learn it. There's different levels of Reiki. There's Reiki level 1, where you can treat family and friends. Level 2, where if you wanted to like put a shingle up. And then Reiki level 3, which is where if you wanted to teach people.
Oh, okay.
So, it is, I would say, a very simple thing that people can do. Again, I'm all about empowering people.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I like the idea of if you want to come and pay me, I'm all for that. But in the long run, like you are able to do this on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Like I will help you, but please don't rely on me, or don't think like you need somebody else.
Yeah.
You can do these things. You're capable. We all have that ability. Some people are like, oh, I don't know energy. No, everybody. Again, it's like your God-given birthright.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Yes. So it's just tapping into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Thanks for asking.
Yes. No, you're welcome. So, you have a website, right, for your coaching?
I have a website. Yes.
Yes. How can people find you and get more information about all these great nuggets of information you've been sharing?
Well, they can find me. It's Coach 4, and it's the number 4, healthyliving.com.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, all of the social media
excellent.
outlets.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Great. So I can link to that in our description too, so people can follow you and
That would be
reach out.
fabulous.
Janine, thank you so much for all of the information you provided today. As you noticed, I was taking notes like crazy. This was so informative, and I really appreciate you taking the time to explain everything about coaching, lifestyle medicine, diet, nutrition, culinary medicine, and giving our community such great advice. So thank you for joining the conversation. Until next time, keep on thriving. Hey guys, just a quick shout out for people who are making their summer plans this 2019. We are going to be heading over to Duluth, Minnesota, June 21st for a Survivors, Thrivers, and Friends meet and greet. So check out the website, survivingbreastcancer.org, for more information. Also, we're going to be heading out to the West Coast to Portland, Oregon, the weekend of August 9th and 10th and 11th. So again, we hope to meet up with our community this summer. Looking forward to it. All right, take care. I would like to acknowledge that all of the information on our podcast are from personal experiences and are not a substitute for professional medical advice. You should always contact your medical care team. If you're looking for specific topics or would like to be a guest on our show, please feel free to reach out to me. My email is laura@survivingbreastcancer.org.